So I've spent the past couple weeks with the new Galaxy Z Fold8 Ultra. With the split in form factor in the Z Fold lineup this year, all the hype has been around the new passport-sized Z Fold8, but the Ultra is an upgraded or revised version of last year's Z Fold7. The 7 was a big jump from the Z Fold6 before it, and it's a phone that, minus a couple minor gripes, I've really enjoyed carrying this past year. With the Ultra, outside of this being 0.1 millimeters thinner when it's opened, the form factor is nearly identical with the large 8-inch display inside. I still really like the narrow, closed experience. It's great for one-hand operation, even without using the one-hand mode. In hand, it feels like a much smaller phone than both the S26 Ultra and the iPhone 17 Pro Max. This feels a lot smaller in the pocket to me than both those phones, and unlike those, this fits both in my car console and my cup holder. Day-to-day use really comes down to the small stuff sometimes. I got the violet shadow colorway. It looks amazing. Flips from a violet to an almost black color flip depending on light. It's such a nice color, you almost hate to put a case on it, but the case they provided offers a big quality of life upgrade for me personally. Last year's official case was silicone with a kickstand. I bought an aftermarket later case and I really struggled getting that MagSafe ring properly aligned for fast wireless charging. This year they've got a lot of different options, including some full coverage options. This is the carbon case in violet. Protects the rear of the phone and includes a couple very thin screen protectors. You can get this case with a kickstand in black, but the version I got has a magnet that's really strong, properly aligned without any guesswork, and that means I can use all my existing MagSafe stuff. I love that. Without a mag case, the phone itself only has like a LaCroix flavor amount of magnetism to it, so a magnetic case is mandatory if you want to use the accessories. I picked up Samsung's own magnetic power bank too. First-party accessories are often the priciest option, but this is thin enough that it doesn't stick out any side, and it has a cutout for the camera array. It's 5,000 milliamp hours, nice kickstand too. I do wish it came in a different color. The magnet in this case is strong enough and the phone is light enough that you can use this on a MagSafe mount open and it shouldn't rotate on you. It's also easier to open this year. They've got beveled edges now to give you a place to grip, and the opening feels smoother because they've redone the hinge system and they have some magnetic assistance in here. Even so, it still manages to hold its position on any angle during open, so unlike the base Z Fold8, the Ultra retains flex mode where you can use it resting at a 90-degree angle on the desk. Screen tension also plays a role in this too, and the display structure is all new this year with a titanium alloy film and an enhanced titanium plate. Samsung says this increases durability, but the immediate tangible improvement with this is the crease. The crease on the Z Fold7 did bother some people. To me, it was pretty minimal when looking at it dead on and a lot more obvious when looking at it from an off angle. The footage you're seeing here is after a year of near constant use. This new crease is very minimal. I think you'd really have to be looking for things to nitpick for this to be an issue, so solid improvements here. Crease looks great, hinge feels great. The internal display now has 3000 nit peak brightness. That's up from 2600 from last year, and it looks incredible. Even outside in broad daylight, like direct sunlight, it's really impressive. Me and my guy Brandon went and shot in the city with temps in the high 80s, and I did notice that during demanding tasks like shooting slow-mo or 8K, the displays, particularly the outside display, started to dim pretty heavily as the phone heated up. This seems to happen pretty quickly. When you're using the big codecs, this phone does get very warm, but it also cools down and returns to full brightness surprisingly fast. There's a new anti-reflective coating too that's a pretty tangible improvement. It cuts down the most on bright reflected light sources, reducing them by, I'd say, like 30%. It's noticeable, particularly outside. All in all, it's just a really impressive display, and I still use this phone unfolded a lot of the time. The only wish I would have would be for the honestly exceptional privacy display on the S26 Ultra, but I get that the thin nature of the Fold and its displays is a limiting factor for this. The camera system's been improved too. It's almost to the specs of the S26 Ultra. The main wide camera is still 200 megapixels with quad pixel autofocus and a minimum aperture of f1.7 versus 1.4 on the S26 Ultra, and they did add HDR this year. The ultra wide camera has been bumped up from 12 megapixels to 50 megapixels. Exact same specs of the S26 Ultra. Not only is this solid for ultra wide shots, but it really ups the ante for macro shots too. If you're opting for the base Z Fold8, you'll get 2 of these cameras instead of the 200 megapixel. Not very ultra is that we still have the 10 megapixel telephoto here. On the S26, this is basically the same when you're at 3x zoom, but zooming to 5x on the S26 Ultra opens up a 50 megapixel super telephoto lens that's just not an option on the Z Fold8 Ultra, and the difference is noticeable. The nightography mode has also been improved this time around for better low light handling with stills. I'm shooting in basically the dark right here. On the video side, we can record up to 8K 30 FPS now. You can also record in log and then preview and apply cinema LUTs all directly in phone, which is pretty crazy. We've got a new high bitrate codec too called APV if you're going to be bringing this footage into a big editor for grading. These create monster file sizes, so you have the option of recording to an external USB device. This is a little 2 terabyte USB I use specifically for filming on mobile, and you can see it adds a few hours of additional recording time versus the internal 256 gig storage on this phone. Slow-mo is either 4K 120 or 1080p at 240, and there's a dual mode here, so so you can record both front and rear in split screen or picture-in-picture. The selfie cameras are also the same 10 megapixel f2.2 cameras that we saw from last year, both on the outside cover and the inside screen. So yeah, that inside camera dot is still visible when you're watching content full screen. The quality of these cameras is kind of a moot point on this phone because we still have that killer feature of being able to leverage the external cameras as a selfie camera with monitoring on the front cover. We have Super Steady from the S26 Ultra that stabilizes your video with that same crazy horizontal lock feature. And like the S26 Ultra, you'll need to be in a pretty brightly lit area to use that feature, and it does crop in so much that you're limited to recording in Quad HD or 2K at 60 FPS. We get a new feature this year called My Fan Cam, where you can record a horizontal video, then select the subject, and the phone will use AI tracking to generate a tracked vertical video of that subject. To be clear, this is not generative AI. It's not recreating the background. It's just using AI to track the information that you've already recorded. Right now, this only works on human subjects, no dice on animals. Yet. And I know generative AI is a dirty term in the creator space, but the ability to remove unwanted objects from photos on Galaxy phones is second to none, and that's including Adobe Lightroom. It is dead easy to get good results for quick snaps on this phone. For me, with this phone having the Ultra name and everything it's capable of, it does sting that we didn't get an upgrade to the telephoto camera. And the location of the camera array still makes for a wobbly experience when it's laying flat on your desk. Even still, it's a really impressive imaging suite on this phone, just a ton of flexibility. For something that's being marketed as a pro content creator phone, it really delivers on a lot of that idea. Powering this beast is the new Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy. Admittedly, I'm not terribly knowledgeable when it comes to mobile processors, but the Geekbench scores show a definite improvement. I don't really do anything on my phone that feels super intensive, so I don't notice it feeling like snappier in day-to-day use. One thing I definitely do notice though is the larger battery. We've got 5,000 milliamp hours here, up from 4,400 on the 7, and this has been an all-day phone for me so far, minus days where I'm filming extensively, whereas the 7 feels like it needs to hit the charger about dinner time every night. Most days I will burn almost 25% of the battery on my device in the first 3 hours that I'm awake. Between catching up on morning emails, some Android Auto and Waze on the drive, a couple hours in the gym with Spotify and an app I use to track progress, it gets a lot of action early in the day. The remainder of the day is the occasional upload, doom scrolling IG, hanging out on my Discord, oftentimes simultaneously because the side-by-side options are still so good here, watching content on YouTube, taking notes of random stuff to check out, even having an active wallpaper on all screens. I'm coasting into bedtime around 10:30 p.m., still sitting at about 15% on this. If you do need to charge midday, they've introduced a new dual path charging architecture and 45-watt fast charging. We've got improved cooling this time around too, and like I said, filming outside on a warm day with big video codecs is the only time I felt this phone get what I would call hot. With the Geekbench testing, both phones seem to get equally warm, but the 8 seems to offload those temps faster than the 7. All right, a couple random things that don't have anything to do with hardware that I thought were interesting. Back in March, Samsung rolled out the ability to use AirDrop with Quick Share, and it works beautifully. Sending to iPhone or MacBook is dead easy, and receiving just means opening Quick Share in receive mode. I already know this is gonna sound like a crazy take, but this method is more consistent for me than just using AirDrop amongst my Apple devices. About 20% of the time using AirDrop, that transfer will start, then slow to a crawl, and then time out, and I don't really feel like anybody talks about that. This alone makes my day-to-day a lot easier, and that leaves Apple's Universal Clipboard and Apple Pay as the only real two standout features for me on that side. I also want to show you a quick example of why Galaxy AI is so far ahead. Recently, I got served a reel by this content creator, Drew Pedden. I hope I'm saying his last name right. He's just redone his studio, and a rug in one of his reels caught my eye. This one right here. Hey Siri, where can I find the rug in this screenshot? Send this photo to ChatGPT. Sure. There we go. It is a modern design with a black base and concentric white curves creating a wave-like pattern, right? You can check retailers like Wayfair, Rugs USA, IKEA, or Amazon by searching such terms as black and white concentric circle rug or modern geometric wave rug. Thanks for nothing. We're gonna run the same play on the Galaxy side with Gemini AI. I'm gonna hold down the home button. I'm gonna draw a line around this rug. And not only did it find the exact one, but it gave me links to go purchase if I want to. So right there, Siri and ChatGPT teamed up to give me a very obvious side quest that would have been my non-AI approach anyway. Galaxy AI provided me with a direct link to purchase the exact product. I'm not even a big AI guy, but that is service. So obviously I'm really pleased with this phone. It's basically just an improved version of what I've already been carrying for the past year. This being such an expensive device, starting at $2,099.99 for the 256 gig version, it's a lot to consider if you're debating upgrading from the Z Fold 7. It really just comes down to whether this addresses a specific fix or need you had from the 7. And if you're somebody that's still holding out for the return of the stylus, the S26 Ultra is still going to be your best bet. As someone who consumes a lot of content on their device, I am genuinely very interested in the base Z Fold 8. It's understandable why there's so much hype around it with its new aspect ratios. YouTube in particular has better functionality while you're watching than the Ultra. And the size and shape on that just feels very good in hand. I will be getting my hands on one of those very shortly. If you want to grab any of the phones I talked about today and you haven't already pre-ordered, I will leave links down in the description. Foldables continue to make the mobile space interesting for me, and I really feel like Samsung came out swinging this year. I'm very excited to see what the competition is going to do.